We live in a world where satellites map every inch of the Earth, yet many of us struggle to navigate our own inner lives. We can receive data from distant galaxies traveling for billions of years, but some people still haven't learned to sit with silence for 5 minutes. We've developed artificial intelligence that can imitate human thought, and yet we often fail to show real empathy toward one another. And now, as February 24th, 2024 approaches, the cosmos offers us yet another paradox. A full moon, shining with nothing more than reflected sunlight, may trigger a deeper transformation within us than all the glowing screens combined. That's not because the moon itself holds magic, but because we have forgotten how to feel wonder in a world we keep trying to measure. So let's pause not to believe blindly in signs, but to understand them. Let's look up not just in hope, but in curiosity. Because this isn't just about a moon. This is about momentum, scientific, philosophical, societal. This is about how we, in this strange moment of history, decide whether to be passengers of time or pilots of destiny. Now, let's talk about that moon. It's easy to forget that the moon is not self-illuminated. It shines only because it reflects the light of the sun. A mirror in the sky, casting shadows not of itself, but of what already exists. Every full moon is an astronomical alignment, Earth in the middle, with sunlight streaming past us and bouncing off our only natural satellite. It's geometry, it's physics, and yet it feels like something more, doesn't it? There's a reason ancient civilizations built monuments aligned with lunar phases. The moon doesn't just rise, it returns. It reminds us that even in darkness, cycles repeat. That change, though often unwelcome, is the one constant. And now, on this particular date, it's returning once again, not to fulfill prophecy, but to offer perspective. On February 24th, 2024, the moon will reach full illumination. From a scientific standpoint, nothing new happens, no rare eclipse, no cataclysmic alignment. And yet, everything about this moment is extraordinary because you are alive to witness it. You, with your neurons firing in delicate chains of biochemistry. You, with your consciousness of phenomenon, we still barely understand turning its gaze upward towards something 384 kilometers away and asking, why does this feel important? And perhaps that is the most important question of all. You see, the moon doesn't change us, we change us. But sometimes we need a prompt, a celestial reminder, an excuse even, to pause the noise, shut the laptop, step outside, and look up. The full moon's light has always invited introspection, not because of magic, but because it affects everything. It influences the tides through gravitational pull. It subtly shifts Earth's atmosphere. And yes, it affects us too. We are, after all, 60% water. And while no scientific consensus claims that the moon dictates our moods, our sleep patterns do alter slightly around full moons. Emergency room visits, traffic incidents, and reports of insomnia all show curious, though debated, patterns. But more than that, this particular full moon arrives during a time of high solar activity. 2 X-class solar flares in close succession. Now, if you're unfamiliar, an X-class solar flare is the most intense classification we give to solar eruptions. These are bursts of electromagnetic radiation unleashed from the sun's surface, blistering out across the solar system, affecting satellites, radio signals, and yes, Earth's magnetosphere. And when those solar storms reach us, they don't just light up the aurora borealis, they can stir the very fields that surround our planet, fields we live within. You might wonder, does this affect me? Well, consider this. Your body operates on electrical signals. Your heart pulses via ion exchange. Your brain functions through electrochemical gradients. If our planet's magnetic environment is fluctuating, and if our biology is exquisitely sensitive to electromagnetic input, is it really so far-fetched to imagine that you might feel a ripple, not in a mystical sense, but in a physiological, psychological, perhaps even philosophical sense? You might feel restless, inspired, anxious, energized. In the same way a thunderstorm makes the hair on your arms stand up before you even hear the thunder, the atmosphere of a planet alive with activity might nudge something awake in you too. So here we are, solar flares overhead, a full moon on the horizon, and a species at a crossroads. Not because the sky will change our fate, but because it may remind us that we can. Because ultimately, what we see in the moon is not the moon, it's ourselves. We see cycles, we see reflection, we see brightness against darkness. And that's why this isn't just an astronomical event. It's a moment for reflection, not of sunlight, but of self. What have you been orbiting that no longer serves you? What beliefs have you kept in your gravitational field long after their mass has decayed? What ideas, habits, fears are you ready to let go of the way the moon lets go of shadow every 29.5 days? Because while the moon will keep circling Earth, you, my friend, have the freedom to break orbit. And that's where we begin. The moon may move in predictable patterns, but you don't have to. You're not a rock in the sky bound by gravity alone. Your consciousness wrapped in flesh, capable of self-reflection, invention, destruction, and redemption. Unlike the moon, you can choose your trajectory. And the February 24th full moon, though it won't change, the laws of physics might just nudge you into remembering that. Let's talk about that possibility. It's a strange thing how something so familiar, so constant, so small in our sky could feel so significant. But that's because we forget the moon is not small. It's over 20 miles wide. That's roughly the distance from New York to Las Vegas. If you set it down on the continental United States, it would stretch across multiple time zones. We just forget its size because it's far. Distance does that it shrinks giants and amplifies specks. And isn't that also true in our lives? How many massive possibilities appear tiny because they're far from our comfort zone? How many decisions monumental in consequence feel small at the time we make them? Like the moon, we underestimate things when we forget how far away we are from the full picture. February 24th gives us an opportunity at night where the full moon's face turns toward us completely, fully lit, fully seen, a sphere of stone that's been orbiting us for over 4 billion years, always there, even when we're not paying attention. That's the metaphor. That's the mirror. What in your life has been orbiting silently in the background, waiting to be seen? Not because it changes, but because you do. Because here's something important. Change doesn't come from celestial events. It comes from clarity. And clarity often arrives when we dare to pause, to observe, to feel something bigger than ourselves. Now imagine this. While you're standing outside, perhaps under this full moon, you are being bombarded by particles from the sun that left its surface 8 minutes ago. Photons, energy, light from 93 million miles away. At the same time, neutrinos, ghostly particles with almost no mass, moving just shy of light speed air flying through your body billions per second without a trace. They pass through you, through Earth, through everything. They come from stars, from supernovae, from the Big Bang itself. So while you're there, under the moonlight, know this. You are being touched by time. You are standing in the midst of invisible forces, gravity, magnetism, radiational, dancing across the stage of existence. And though you may not feel them, they shape your reality. They bend light. They sculpt galaxies. They hold atoms together. They allow consciousness to arise from carbon. And yet we still fight over land, over borders, drawn by people who never looked up. We still deny the reality of one another's pain, as though empathy were an optional setting instead of a fundamental feature of human potential. But what if, on this night, the full moon became a lighthousenaut, a mystical beacon, but a rational 1EA reminder that while celestial objects are bound to the predictable, human beings are not. You can make choices. You can change your orbit. So let's shift perspective. Picture this. You're on a pale blue dot orbiting a mid-sized star in the outer spiral arm of a galaxy containing over 100 billion suns. And that galaxy is one of over 2 trillion others. The sheer scale of it renders most of our daily worries microscopic. And yet, within that scale, you matter. Because you are aware of it, you can contemplate it. The moon doesn't know it's beautiful. The sun doesn't know it gives life. But you can know. And that knowing is your power. Let's take that further. While solar flares erupt with the force of 10 billion hydrogen bombs, Their electromagnetic energy reaches Earth and shakes our magnetic field. It doesn't knock us off course, but it stirs the sky. Sometimes, auroras appear ripples of green and violet across polar skies, dancing to the music of invisible solar storms. Now consider this. What if consciousness is like Earth's magnetosphere? What if, when stirred by celestial events, not through magic, but through subtle, real forces, we too become luminous? Not by default, but by response? What if this moment isn't about forecasting your fate, but about facing your responsibility? Because the truth is, the universe doesn't owe you anything. It's not a wish machine. It's a field of probabilities, energy, and entropy. But within that, you are a structure of astonishing complexity, capable of shaping probability through focus, intention, action. This is why setting intentions during moments of cosmic significance matters, not because the moon makes your dreams come true, but because you do. And the moon reminds you to look up, to pause, to align your inner rhythm with something grander than your routine. And let me be clear, intention setting is not superstition, it's neuroscience. When you articulate a goal, when you visualize it, when you write it down, you activate specific brain networks, you engage the reticular activating system, priming your awareness to notice opportunities aligned with that goal. You shift attention, you filter perception, you recalibrate behavior. In other words, what feels like manifestation is often just consistency plus attention over time, amplified by a moment that makes you feel awake. The full moon doesn't do the work for you, it reminds you to do the work at all. And if there's a rare cosmic alignment, if the solar flares are active, then maybe the conditions around you are unusually loud. And that can be good, because sometimes it takes noise to break silence. It takes energy to jolt inertia. So as February 24th nears, ask yourself not what the moon can give you, but what it can awaken in you. Because every full moon is a mirror, and every mirror is an invitation. Now, think about this. If the full moon is a mirror, what exactly is it reflecting? Not just light, but contrast. The moon reflects sunlight only because Earth stands in between. In that geometry, there is a kind of poetry. We, Earth, cast our shadow, and in doing so, the moon becomes fully visible. To see the moon fully, we must place ourselves squarely between the light and the object. We must, quite literally, stand in the way. This is more than physics. It's philosophy in disguise. How often in life does clarity emerge when we allow ourselves to stand directly between two opposing forces? Light and dark, logic and emotion, chaos and order. How often do we come to understand something fully only when we hold still, reflect, and observe its relationship to everything else? That's what February 24th offers. Not prophecy, not magic, but perspective. We live in a time when information is abundant, but wisdom feels scarce. When noise is constant, but signal is rare. We scroll endlessly through content images, headlines, opinions, until reality becomes pixelated, fragmented, scattered like stardust without gravity. But when you look at the moon, none of that matters. There is no algorithm in the sky, no filter on lunar craters, no subscription needed to witness a celestial body that predates civilization itself. And in that simplicity light on rock in vacuum, you are reminded that some truths do not trend, but endure. One such truth is this: the universe is not outside you. You're part of it, not metaphorically, literally. Every atom in your body was forged in a star. The iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen in your lungs all came from stellar furnaces that exploded billions of years ago. You are not simply made of the cosmos, you are the cosmos in a form that can think, dream, build telescopes, and ask why. That's not poetry, that's astrophysics. And yet, it is beautiful. So, what do we do with that knowledge? Do we treat life as a random sequence of events, or as an opportunity to engage with reality, scientific, emotional, existential, with reverence and curiosity? Let's imagine for a moment a map of the solar system. The moon orbits Earth. Earth orbits the sun. The sun orbits the center of the Milky Way. And the Milky Way itself is moving through space part, of a gravitational ballet of galaxies swirling together in what we call the Laniakea supercluster. You are on a planet that is moving at 30 kilometers per second around the sun, which itself is moving at over 200 kilometers per second around the galaxy. Right now, you're traveling through space at over 500,000 miles per hour. And yet, you feel still. That's not because you're stationary, it's because you're in sync with your environment. Now, imagine what happens when you fall out of sync not with space, but with yourself. You know the feeling. When your actions don't match your values, when your habits don't serve your health, when your attention is hijacked, your energy scattered, your sense of direction lost. That's not inertia. That's misalignment. What full moons offer again, not because of supernatural forces, but because of how they make us feel, is an opportunity to realign. Why? Because they're obvious. They're hard to ignore. They stop you in your tracks. And in a world of constant motion, anything that causes you to pause is sacred. Now, let's address another part of this moment, the solar flares. Solar flares are not fantasy. They are real, measurable bursts of radiation, some strong enough to knock out satellites, disrupt radio communication, even threaten astronauts aboard the ISS. When a powerful flare leaves the sun, it takes roughly 8 minutes for its light to reach us. But the charged particles plasma clouds, known as coronal mass ejections, stake longer. When they arrive, they interact with Earth's magnetic field, compressing it, stirring it, sometimes even flipping its polarity in localized regions. This geomagnetic activity doesn't just cause auroras, it can overload electrical grids, influence animal migration, and yes, subtly affect human physiology. There is emerging research into how geomagnetic storms might correlate with sleep disturbances, heart rate variability, or cognitive performance. The science isn't settled, but the correlations are intriguing. It's a reminder that we are never separate from the universe. We are immersed in it, shaped by it, responding to it, whether we notice or not. So if you felt strange lately, restless, introspective, emotionally volatile, you're not broken. You're alive in a highly dynamic system of space, solar activity, and social pressure. And that brings us to the heart of the matter. This is not just a moment to feel cosmic wonder. It is a time to decide what kind of person you want to be on a planet undergoing rapid change. Because the most powerful force in the known universe, more powerful than gravity, magnetism, or nuclear fusion, is choice. The universe, as we understand it, runs on laws, constants, predictable patterns of cause and effect. But human behavior? That's the wild card. You can love someone who wronged you. You can forgive when biology screams for vengeance. You can be still when chaos demands noise. You can choose kindness over dominance, curiosity over fear. And you can choose to learn to understand not just what happens in the sky, but what it means to you. February 24th will come and go. The moon will rise full and glowing, and then it will wane. Solar flares may ripple through the magnetosphere. Articles will be written. Videos shared, trends will spike. But the real shift, that won't be in the sky. It will be in you if you choose it. So what does it look like to choose a shift? Not in theory, in real life, in your daily orbit of decisions, emotions, conversations. It looks like awareness. Awareness that your mind, like the moon, has phases. That you don't need to be at your fullest to be valuable. That even when part of you is in shadow, you are still whole. It looks like choosing what to focus on, not just with your eyes, but with your energy. Every minute, your attention is being pulled notifications, deadlines, distractions engineered to exploit your biology. But just because your biology evolved in a different era doesn't mean you're helpless in this one. Your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for planning, decision-making, self-regulation, is the cosmic gift of evolution. It is what allows you to pause, to respond, not react, to notice, not numb, to step outside the cycle and ask, what am I orbiting? And is it worth my gravity? Because just like the moon, your habits revolve around something. Your thoughts loop. Your beliefs exert pull. And unless you become conscious of them, you will mistake inertia for identity. This is the true opportunity of events like February 24th. Not external transformation, but internal calibration. Science has given us tools to measure almost everything: brainwaves, hormones, planetary motion, cosmic background, radiation. But no telescope, no particle collider, no quantum equation can replace introspection. The practice of looking inward with honesty and clarity is perhaps the most underutilized scientific instrument of the human species. We are too easily seduced by technology into believing that outer expansion is the same as inner growth. But they are not the same. A civilization can build rockets to Mars and still fail to build empathy between neighbors. A culture can map the genome and still suffer from moral illiteracy. So we must not mistake progress for wisdom. We must earn that through choice, through reflection, through humility. And that is where science meets soul, not in superstition, but in sincerity. Not in escapism, but in engagement with reality as it truly is. Think about what it means to exist on this planet at this time. You are one of the very few species, possibly the only, that can ask why it exists at all. And you live in an era when the tools of observation, from telescopes to quantum equations, allow you to decode the fabric of the universe. You are not waiting on a burning bush. You are surrounded by burning suns. They have been speaking since the beginning through light, through fusion, through gravitational waves and galactic spin. And now, finally, you can listen. But will you open yourself to that scale, not just in knowledge, but in perspective? Because if you do, you realize something both liberating and terrifying. There are no guarantees. The universe doesn't play favorites. Stars are born and die with no regard for what's fair. Asteroids don't ask permission before they reshape worlds. Solar flares don't schedule themselves around your calendar. But within that indifference, life emerges. And within that life, a brief, astonishing interval of awareness in a cosmos that is otherwise silent. And that awareness, that flicker of consciousness wrapped in atomsis, what gives everything its meaning. So the question is no longer, will the full moon change everything? The real question is, will you? Will you use this moment not as an omen, but as an opening? Not as a mystical escape, but as a rational re-entry into a life lived with intention? Will you take stock of what you've become and what you could be? Because no alignment of planets can do that for you. No photon or particle or tidal force can make you choose to evolve. Only you can do that. And yet, when you Tao and enough of us do something, remarkable happens. We become the next phase of evolution. Not biological, but conscious. Not through gene editing or AI, but through a collective return to what science has always revealed, that we are not separate from nature, from each other, from the universe itself. And that realization, that cosmic humility, is where the new Earth begins. Not as a planet, but as a perspective. A worldview shaped not by superstition or fear, but by the twin lenses of awe and accountability. It's not enough to admire the stars if we can't take care of each other under them. It's not enough to understand lunar cycles if we ignore the cycles of poverty, ignorance, and violence we perpetuate. The moon will always rise. But what rises in you, that's the real question. So when you look up on February 24th, do more than marvel. Decide to see the universe as a partner, not a background. Decide to become conscious of your orbitan, whether it's pulling you toward wisdom or away from it. Decide to treat your mind like a sky capable of storms, but also constellations. Decide to become a better observer, not just of planets, but of people, of yourself. Because when enough people do that quietly, consistently, courageously, don't just get a new moon, we get a new humanity. When we talk about liftoff, we imagine rockets, smoke, fire, gravity-defying thrust. But the real liftoff that matters isn't mechanical, it's psychological. Because the greatest ascent you will ever make is from unconsciousness to awareness, from reactivity to responsibility, from inherited patterns to intentional creation. And in that sense, February 24th is not a full moon, It's a launch pad. But launch to where? That depends on you. You see, we often forget that space travel begins on Earth. The discipline, the training, the calculations, the courage to face risk. You don't just strap into a rocket and hope, you prepare. Likewise, awakening, personal, collective, civilizationalis, not something that just happens. It is something that must be chosen again and again. And now in this era of accelerating complexity, climate instability, AI ethics, social division, information overload, the need for awakened citizens has never been greater. The full moon won't fix these things, but maybe it can remind you that change requires light, and light begins with seeing clearly. Let's start with clarity about your own life. What habits have calcified into character? What fears have disguised themselves as caution? What possibilities have you discarded? Not because they were impossible, but because they were inconvenient. What if you took one night, just unanned, treated it as sacred? Not in the religious sense, but in the scientific sense, worthy of observation, full of pattern, full of potential. A moment where variables align not because of fate, but because you decided to stop and notice. Because everything starts with noticing. Galileo noticed the movement of the moons. Newton noticed an apple fall. Curie noticed a glow. Einstein noticed a contradiction. These were not acts of magic, they were acts of attention. And so it is with transformation. You don't need the moon to give you permission to change. But if its silver face helps you pause long enough to remember that you can then let it, use that pause to ask the real questions. Am I living on autopilot, or am I choosing my direction? Am I repeating my past or evolving from it? Am I orbiting comfort or truth? And here's the real power of the moon. It reflects not just light, but whatever you bring to it. If you seek clarity, it becomes a mirror. If you seek escape, it becomes a fantasy. The object doesn't change, you do. So bring truth, bring honesty, bring the part of you that's tired of small talk and ready for substance. The part of you that knows you weren't born just to consume, to scroll, to survive. You were born to understand, to build, to connect, to expand not your following, but your awareness. Because you are not a spectator of the universe. You are the universe becoming conscious of itself. And what you do with that realization, that is your liftoff. So Tawny Tor, whenever you next look up, don't just see the moon. See the gravitational bond between you and everything else. See the laws of motion, the dance of photons, the echo of creation in every breath. See your ancestors who once used that moon to navigate oceans, mark time, plant crops. See the generations after you who will either inherit a planet in crisis or a civilization in renaissance, depending on what we choose today. Because this isn't just about energy, it's about ethics. The moon doesn't care what we do, but our children will. The universe is not watching, we are. And that's why this moment matters. Not because February 24th holds cosmic secrets, but because it holds your attention. And what you pay attention to, that becomes your life. So here is your invitation. Prepare for liftoff, not by leaving Earth, but by honoring it. Not by chasing light, but by becoming it. Not by waiting for signs, but by being the signal. Be the curiosity that leads to discovery. Be the silence that leads to insight. Be the calm center of gravity in a chaotic orbit. And when the full moon rises, let it rise in you too, not just as light in the sky, but as clarity in the mind, strength in the will, and compassion in the heart. Because that's what the world needs now. Not more opinions, more observation. Not more noise, more meaning. Not more consumption, more consciousness. So look up, stand still, and prepare to rise. The countdown is already underway. The sky is not the limit. It's the beginning. And your liftoff starts now.